aspects of clean energy in order to be able to sustain the quality of life and not to condemn others who have not made it out of poverty to remain in poverty because you're depriving their countries of being able to produce the natural gas that the world will need going forward.
Mia Mottley, Prime Minister of Barbados, I want to thank you very much for your time and for appearing here on the France 24 interview. Stay tuned here on France 24 for more news.
July 1942 saw the largest mass arrest of Jews in France, in central Paris, the Vélodrome d'Hiver Roundup.
Les gens faisaient la queue sans dire un mot, comme des animaux à l'abattoir.
Thanks to the accounts of survivors, we revisit the story of the deported families who fought to survive during the darkest hours of France's history.
Je ne vais pas te quitter, j'ai hurlé. Elle m'a giflé violemment, la seule gifle de ma vie. Mais c'est plus tard que j'ai compris que cette gifle m'a sauvé la vie.
Watch Revisited, the roundup of Jews in Paris on France 24 and France24.com.
Seven 銀行 ATM なら
is considered a special area.
Steve Parks, thank you very much indeed.
Quiz My Value 納得の価格でいいよ
This is DW News live from Berlin. London begins bidding a final farewell to Queen Elizabeth. Crowds line the streets of the British capital as a royal procession carries the Queen's coffin to Westminster Hall. Hundreds of thousands are expected to pay their respects to the late monarch in the coming days. Also coming up, optimism and defiance as the Ukrainian president visits recaptured territory. Volodymyr Zelensky goes to the strategic town of Izium and tweets that his country is moving only in one direction, to victory. But are Ukraine's surprise gains in the northeast really a turning point in the war against Russia? And European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen proposes a sweeping emergency plan to deal with surging energy costs caused in part by Russia's war on Ukraine. Hello, I'm Ben Fazul, and thanks for joining us. The coffin of Queen Elizabeth II has been carried from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Hall on a military-flanked gun carriage topped with the imperial state crown. King Charles III, Prince William and Prince Harry were among the senior royals following the procession through central London. The United Kingdom's longest reigning monarch will now lie in state until her funeral on Monday. Hundreds of thousands are expected to file past her coffin to pay their respects to the late Queen. And our correspondent Barbara Wiesel is also in London following events for us. Barbara, if you can hear me, see me, please tell me what you're seeing and how things have gone so far.
I'm standing on the south side of the Thames, so if you can see, hopefully, with the Parliament at the back of me. And in the midst of that complex is this Westminster Hall, the historic place where British kings and one queen or two queens over the centuries met first the nobility and later the elected representatives. So it's a really very enigmatic place. And this is where Queen Elizabeth's casket is now waiting, and people here on this side of the Thames are doing what British do so well. They are forming a very, very long, orderly queue all the way down the river here, all the way down probably in the next day to Tower Bridge, and maybe even further down 8 kilometers. The organizers are supposing and guessing this line might be stretching along the river because people are waiting to be let in, a slow and steady trickle on the other side into Westminster Hall. This is going to begin around 8 o'clock this evening, Central European time, within a few hours. And people then will have to pass a security checkpoint, but all this is supposed to be very, very quick, very unobtrusive, and then they come and then can enter the hall and have a few quiet moments with their queen, say goodbye to her, that monarch that everyone here seems so closely connected with. She was the queen of everyone here because there's hardly anybody alive who can remember another one. And she really is a symbol for the stability and the immutability of parts of British life. And that is why she was so revered, because she was so dutiful, and she really sort of gave her whole life to what she called the service of her people.
Barbara, tell me a little bit more about the security situation there.
It's a huge operation, of course, even though this crowd here and it's not a crowd really, it is in fact a queue. And all it takes is a few stewards to say, ladies and gentlemen, the queue is on that side, and everybody very quickly and quietly moves to the side. So it seems there's hardly any security necessary, but of course it will be. Over the weekends, the crowd are supposed to be swelling. Special trains will be brought in from all over Britain. All flights are booked out. So London is expecting about 1 million or more, nobody really knows, extra visitors. 10,000 policemen and women are out, thousands of soldiers to secure this whole operation. But then all this will culminate, of course, next Monday when the actual funeral service is being held in Westminster Abbey on the other side here in my back. And that is when really police will have their hands full, because from President Joe Biden, heads of state from all throughout the world will be appearing here, crowned heads of Europe, 2 Spanish kings, the one that stepped down and the current one. So a lot of course, relatives of the Queen's family will appear here. And it is, of course, a huge security headache to keep all these politicians, top politicians, all of Europe will be represented here, all the heads of state, safe and secure, and to organize this, that nothing happens really, is like a very, very big operation, the biggest Britain has seen in decades.
Well, in ensuring nothing happens, tell me, not everyone was a fan of the monarchy. What about protests?
There have been a very few protests by the sides. I mean, we saw this in Scotland. I mean, it was just single people sort of suddenly saying when the new King Charles III was walking past them, he was voted for. I didn't vote for him, and immediately people were being
pulled out of the crowd. So it seems that the very tiny instances of people saying, we Republicans, we don't like the monarchy, the police was reacting rather heavy-handedly. So there's a discussion in newspapers about this now, and I suppose in the next days there will be a bit more sensitivity because, of course, you can also peacefully and quietly protest against the monarchy you don't like, even though this is the very solemn occasion of the funeral procedures for Queen Elizabeth.
DW's Barbara Wiesel in London, thank you. Ukraine has announced far-reaching gains in the east of the country after a lightning offensive. President Volodymyr Zelensky has been visiting the newly liberated town of Izium, which is a key supply hub. Just days ago, the town was still under Russian control. Ukraine says it has liberated 8,000 square kilometres in the Kharkiv region. But Kyiv is also reporting that troops are learning of atrocities allegedly committed by Russian forces under 6 months of occupation. Prosecutors have launched a war crimes probe. Elsewhere, there have been scenes of joy as Ukrainian forces arrive in communities now abandoned by Russian forces.
A mother reunited with her son. He had been fighting in the Ukrainian army for days in the Kharkiv region until his unit liberated his home village. My son, I have been waiting for you. I have kept all your things, everything. They said there are mines in the apartment.
Mom, you're looking good as always. I missed you so much.
Ukrainian soldiers follow a trail of destruction as they press their attack. The Russians are in a headlong retreat, shedding their equipment as they fall back.
They were running like mice. They were running and abandoning everything, vehicles, their own men. They even abandoned one of their own who was wounded just to get away.
The Kremlin denies reports that the military setbacks are turning people against President Vladimir Putin.
Russians support the president, and the mood of the people confirms this. The people stand firmly behind the decisions made by the head of state.
But as Ukraine continues to roll back gains made by Russian forces early in the war, Putin's decision to invade Ukraine could come back to haunt him.
John Spencer is a US Army veteran and the head of urban warfare studies at the US-based Modern War Institute. Welcome. What do you make of the situation right now in the, particularly in the east, but also in the south of Ukraine? Where would you say we're at in this war?
I mean, I think we're at the biggest turning point since the defeat of Russia back in April when they couldn't take the capital city of Kyiv. It's a major turning point in this war.
Is this proof that the power of morale and leadership are as crucial as pure military force?
Absolutely. There's probably no better example in the modern history of warfare that what matters most are those intangibles, the will to fight and the reason the soldiers are fighting, but also their cohesion and their leadership. Ukraine is just a better military. It may not have as much equipment, although it has better equipment now by its Western partners.